You may have heard of this thing called coronavirus. It's a pretty big deal, but for how much destruction and disruption it's causing, how many pounds are there? To answer this question, I first had to find how much a single coronavirus particle weighs. Unsurprisingly, no one's weighed one yet. We've weighed other viruses, just not this one. At least I couldn't find anything. How do you weigh something that's smaller than the wavelength of visible light? Something you can't even see under a microscope. Well, we've got some pretty impressive techniques. Imagine a cantilever, or that is, a line attached to a plane on one end and floating on the other, 50 micrometers long, or 50 micrometers short. That's 50 millionths of a meter. Now, the cantilever is bouncing up and down at a known frequency inside of a vacuum. Here's a picture. Here's our plane, here's our cantilever, and inside of our cantilever, which is a cylinder, is a U-shaped hole running from the base to the tip and back to the base with a pump attached so that things can be pumped to the tip and then back. As the virus, or any small particle, like this caffeine molecule, is pumped to the tip of the cantilever, the frequency decreases and the magnitude increases, and the opposite occurs. So, the frequency change can be measured and used to determine the mass of a virus. Using this method, we can weigh a virus with an accuracy of less than a millionth of a trillionth of a gram. Anyways, viruses, the most abundant form of life on Earth. In fact, if you line them up in a straight line end to end, they would stretch for more than 100 million light years. What the? And similarly in scale, in just the ocean alone, there are 100 million times more bacteria than stars in the observable universe. So, coronavirus is 150 nanometers in diameter, or 150 billionths of a meter. To put this into perspective, if hair was blown up into a world where it was 30 centimeters in diameter, a virus would look like this piece of pepper. The pore size of an N95 mask is twice that, at 300 nanometers, but it keeps the virus particles out because they're typically hitching a ride on a respiratory droplet that is much larger. We also know that the coronavirus is roughly spherical in shape, like this ball. Therefore, we can use the radius to determine its volume to be 1,770,000 nanometers cubed.
Now, using the average density of a virus particle, 1.375 grams per centimeters cubed, multiplied by the number of nanometers cubed in a centimeter cubed, multiplied by the volume of our coronavirus particle, we find that the weight of a coronavirus particle is 2.4 femtograms, or that.
At that weight, using my rough estimation of there being 10 billion virus particles inside your body at the peak of infection, you would be 0.000000039% coronavirus. Or, in a more comprehensible form, your body would contain 0.0000177 grams of coronavirus. On the note of what percent coronavirus you would be, experts believe that about half of our DNA originates from viruses that embedded their DNA, or code, into our ancestors' sperm and egg cells. Even though viruses are prolific and arguably the best DNA replicating wetware in the entire biosphere, some scientists don't even consider them to be alive. Well, let's entertain that idea. If a virus isn't a living organism, then what is it? It would really just be a complex, self-replicating molecule, and that's really what we all are. So, the tendency of reality is for things that replicate to do so, and those offspring to keep replicating. That makes perfect sense. It's sort of a runaway effect. And in the context of chemicals, it seems kind of simple how all living things can evolve from dead materials. Chemicals that happen to be in an environment where they replicated became more abundant. The best replicator was the most common, and over time, having a shell was advantageous, and therefore they became more complex and they had a shell, and so on and so forth until DNA was using a human shell to replicate itself. Okay, if we take the maximum amount of coronavirus in an infected person and multiply it by the number of active cases as I record this video, 1.5 million, we find that with a huge margin of error, there are 26.5 grams of coronavirus. If we could gather it all up, it would fit in his hand. There are estimates that the coronavirus could cost the global economy up to $2 trillion. That's $75 billion of destruction per gram. I wonder, in all of history, what's been the most destructive thing per gram? If I made your quarantine any better, leave a like. And check out the other channels in the description for more videos like this.